So your twin, are you guys identical twins? Are you
Yeah, we're identical twins, and
okay?
he doesn't have Tourette's.
No.
That's a common question people ask me, which is fair because if I have Tourette's, there's a 50% chance he would too,
Yep.
but he has anxiety and depression, so
Okay.
kind of in the mix, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Those are definitely some of the co-occurring. I know I have anxiety, OCD, I have along with my Tourette syndrome.
Mhm.
So do you think some of that maybe helps him understand like what you're going through, even at least to a small degree?
Um, no, I don't think so. Okay, to be fair, when I first started ticking, he thought I was faking it. And I was like, come on, bro. Like why like why would I do that? But he's come to it and he's understood it and he knows I'm not faking it now. Uh I always bring up my grinding teeth tick to him. Like, bro, come on, bro.
Yeah, that's those are the worst ones. Has there been any crazy injuries that you have had with your from your ticks?
Yeah. So I had this like wrist flicking tick. Um Basically I'd like flick my wrist. And I severely sprained my left wrist and then I had it on my right wrist and then now they're just damaged.
Oh
Like they click and
no.
stuff. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, because I
Yeah.
know people ask me all the time, like, do you hurt yourself? Does it hurt? Or have you ever been injured? I'm like, well, yes. Doing
Yeah.
doing the same movement over and over again absolutely
Yeah.
hurts. Might not hurt the first few times I do it, but yes, you get tired. I know I do a lot of takes with my jaw and my neck. And so like right here is just so sore the next day when I do it.
Hmm.
I
Especially as a
haven't
work.
I haven't sprained my wrist though, and I do have a wrist flicking tick. So hopefully,
Oh, don't get that one.
yeah. Anything that you want to make sure that we discuss before we end?
Treating people with respect because you don't know what they're going through. Because I also have other co-occurring conditions, so like ADHD, sensory processing disorder, and then like a lot of learning differences.
Mm-hmm.
Those things can impact me too.
Yeah, I know a lot of people actually have the sensory processing disorder. Can you, for those that might not know, explain that a little bit to anybody
Yeah.
watching?
So basically, it's actually pretty common in a lot of people. They just don't know what it is. So I have it pretty severely. So basically, there's it's kind of like what happens to Tourette's. Your brain sends a signal, but in sensory processing disorder, you your brain is sending like too many signals, and it's making you feel like overstimulated in the environment or understimulated. So you could be super sensitive to lights, maybe flashing lights, maybe a lot of noises, maybe you don't like certain textures
Hmm.
or on your skin or like food textures. Um, and then you can be understimulated, which a lot of people, which are like sensory seeking behavior. So maybe you like to go on like fast rides, maybe you like cold water,
Hmm.
you like chewing things. So those are, and then you can have both, which is just like mixed together.
Oh,
So
wow.
that's what it is. I personally, I hate flashing lights. I don't like going to grocery stores because there's so many people, there's so many noises. And then that's plus with my Tourette's. So it's like I
Mhm.
already hate the grocery store and then I hate
Yeah.
it more because there's people there. And then oh, also misophonia, which is like a thing. It's like basically I hate people chewing like different specific sounds. I'm like, oh, I want to scream so bad.
I'm the same way.
Yeah. So like I can be sensitive to certain noises and yeah. Luckily I have a lot of coping methods, but it can be a lot if I'm going out in public because I'll already be overstimulated and then I already have to deal with other people reacting to my Tourette's and stuff. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
it's a lot.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. The grocery store is definitely a high. I
I
can
hate the grocery
understand.
store.
Yeah. I can understand it being a stimulating
Hmm.
atmosphere, especially when it's busy. Before I really recognized the fact that I had anxiety, I
Hmm.
always chalk those moments up to like, oh, well, you're just easily annoyed, you have a temper, like you get
Yeah.
aggravated. And I didn't put it together that a lot of that is like my anxiety also ramping up when I'm
Oh
around
yeah.
that many people and they're like all close to me and possibly touching me. And I just want
Yeah.
them to be gone. And like I start to feel that like hot, like the heat all over my body and my heart starts to race. And I didn't put that together for so long until I started talking to other people with anxiety. And I'm like, wow, that's actually what I probably have. It's not just me just being temperamental.
Yeah. That sounds like anxiety. That's a lot like the sensory processing disorder. Like when I get overwhelmed, my heart starts pounding. Like it's hard for me to breathe. It's kind of like a panic attack, but then I feel like I'm gonna fall, or like the whole world just like slows down.
Oh,
And
wow.
kind of crazy.
Yeah, very crazy. Yeah. And I know a lot of people don't really know about that. So I'm very glad that you brought that up because I see it being shared a lot too, obviously, among other Tourette
Yeah.
pages. And because sometimes I do think to myself, I'm like, I wonder if that's maybe one of my things. So many people can be going along for so long just thinking that they have these quirks and these just,
That's so true. Hmm.
yeah, these personality things. But then you start to look into it more or start talking to other people. And that's why I like doing like videos like this. You start to
Hmm.
realize, like, no, I have all of these things too. Not saying people who do things can start saying they have Tourette's. That is,
Yeah.
I just want to make
Oh,
it very clear that's not the message I am sending right now.
yeah.
But some of these other things that are occurring, like anxiety, sensory processing disorder, ADD, ADHD, and OCD is a big one. And that's
Oh,
one of the ones that also gets me very fired up was when I hear people say like, "Oh, I'm so OCD."
oh my
Because
God. I hate that because my mom has severe OCD and then my uncle also has OCD, so I'm in that situation and it's pretty hectic. I don't have OCD myself, but I have like Tourette OCD symptoms or
Mhm.
whatever. So that's not really talked about either.
Yeah, no, it isn't. And OCD as a whole, like, and I've made like a couple of videos talking about OCD, but it's so hard to explain to people what it really is unless you have it. And I always try to tell them like, nobody likes messy things. Nobody.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
That doesn't mean you're OCD. It's also not a verb. Like
Yeah.
it's not an adjective. It's
Like it's not like, oh, I'm so OCD that I do this.
yes.
No.
Yes, and I agree. And it can be frustrating because it's also, I don't want people to think like I'm just overly sensitive. It's no, I want people to start realizing that people have this and it can be debilitating for some people.
Yeah, it can really affect people's lives.
Yes, exactly. 100%. So very glad we brought that up because
Yeah.
I know a lot of people have OCD is very, very common. I think from people that I've talked to, OCD seems to be one of the even more common things that come along with Tourette syndrome. And I try to
Yeah.
explain that to people too. Like it, no, like my OCD and Tourette syndrome, they work together both against me. That I have to
Yeah.
tick certain ways. I have to tick in certain numbers. I have to do it very specifically because of my OCD, or I can't walk out of a room because I have to tap the door so many times before I have to do
Oh,
it. Or when I'm eating, I have to tap my tapping is
oh, yeah.
probably one of my more annoying things that I have, but I have to do it on my plate, like in a certain way. And that's like some of
Mhm.
my compulsions and my OCD. I do it on my phone all the time. It's
Oh,
a, I would say that's kind of similar to one of my Tourette OCD things.
yeah.
I have accidentally answered survey questions. I have accidentally added people as friends on social media by doing it.
Oh,
I've accidentally messaged people. Like,
yeah. It's so weird. It's like your brain gets like stuck in this loop and like you have to do it. Especially like with like schoolwork and stuff, like I'll be reading something and I'll have to reread that word like 5,000 times. And
yes.
oh, or like flip the page and then flip the page again and then flip it again. I'm like, bro.
Yep. I do it
It's
where I have to keep doing it faster and more forcefully. and I'll rip things. Or with reading, I do that in my head. I'll reread words just like you said, and it's like my brain's like, all right, we'll see how fast you can do it, and however many.
Yeah.
And that
Yes.
one, people
See,
don't
because
understand.
people see the Tourette that's noticeable, right? But then there's
Yep.
also the stuff that's in your mind that people have no idea what in the world is going on.
Exactly. I can appear to be not ticking to you, but I am. You
Yeah.
just don't know that I'm ticking. And that's what I tell people because I get a lot. I've never seen you tick before. And that's not to them being um negative or whatever. That's just a
Yeah.
very common thing I get told. And I'm like, you actually have, you just don't know that you have.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have a lot of these body ticks where it just looks like even the ones I've been doing during now, it just looks like I'm stretching.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, those are actually ticks. Most of the time I'm not just randomly stretching.
Yeah.
I always wonder how to react in that situation because I think it's them trying to make it not that big of a deal, which I appreciate because I'd rather people pretend, or not even pretend, but just go on like nothing's happening.
Yeah.
I want that to happen, but I also don't want to downplay it to the fact like, well, no, you actually, I always want to make sure I'm like, you actually probably have,
Yeah.
and that's okay. It's okay that you've seen me tick. Like, I'm not going to be mad
Yeah.
that you've seen me tick before.
I think people are just super curious about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I would definitely say that I ran into more people that want to learn more rather than just downright ignorant people. Don't get me wrong. I've had run-ins with ignorant people, especially on the internet. They're
Yeah,
all
like, oh, I didn't see you tick. I'm like, that's not how it works. And the fact that a lot of people think that, like, oh, since we can suppress it, we can just not like tick at all.
yes.
Like, that's not how it works.
Right. I always try to tread very softly when I talk about suppression because I never want people to be like, oh, well, then just do it all the time. Just don't tick then. And I'm
There's negative effects.
yes, very negative. I tried to explain it in one of my another video, I think. It came to me randomly that it's kind of almost like when you shake a bottle of pop. Like it's fizz, and eventually when you release it, it's going everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it is. I will start ticking with every part of my body and 100% go into a tick attack.
Yeah, for sure. And also, like, for me, I can get, this is also not talked about, which is rage attacks.
Okay.
A lot of times seen in like Tourette, in individuals with Tourette's. Basically just I get super mad and I just kind of like I can like throw things, get really upset and stuff. And it's like my brain being like just I'm so overwhelmed at that.
And that's what I think it's almost like all of those things combined that you were talking about, like anxiety, sensory processing disorder. And I think it almost like builds into those rage attacks because I definitely have had moments. I don't know if I can classify it as a rage attack just because I don't know. And I don't want to say that I don't want to say that it's something that I'm not sure of. But there have been times where I've gotten so mad.
Yeah.
And it's like after it's over and I'm out of that, I'm just like, I'm so embarrassed.
Yeah. It's the guilt. Yes. I feel that.
Yes. I don't know why it happens and all these things. I think it's just so much of like trying not to let it happen. Eventually it's just
and all right. I'm definitely a different person when I'm in that environment, like in that headspace. And then when I come out of it, I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. Like I had a rage attack and like I broke a table of like a leg table. And I was like, wow.
What kind of advice would you give to anybody that is wanting to start like spreading awareness and being an advocate, but they're scared to tell their story? Like what kind of advice would you give to somebody that's like a little too afraid of doing that?
Well, I'd start with, you don't even have to tell your story. You can just explain like the condition, about what Tourette is about. Like you don't have to go into detail. All you need to do is you can just even, hand out flyers. You don't even have to hand out flyers. You can like post it around your neighborhood, maybe on like a pole, maybe for like Tourette syndrome awareness. You post something on your story, like and like do a poll and say like, has anyone heard of this? And like just like be casual about it, like casually mention it. And then when you start feeling like more comfortable, you can kind of expand more. That's how
Yeah.
I did it, honestly. I first posted on my main account when I started developing tics. I'm like, has anyone heard of Tourette's? And then like I asked them to ask me questions about what Tourette's is. And then eventually like I posted on my account that I actually have Tourette's. So yeah, just like ease into it.
I like that. I like um not necessarily having to share your part of it first. Maybe just
Yeah.
start sharing information. I think that's a really great way to ease into it. So I think that's really good advice for anybody on the fence out there right now. I
Yeah.
definitely think there's a lot of power in sharing your story. Just like you said, it helps you come to terms and accept it more. I think that is super helpful with accepting it and being a little more confident in your own skin. That's not to say there will never be a time where I'm not embarrassed sometimes of ticking,
Oh yeah, for sure.
because there's and I guess maybe not even embarrassed, but like self-conscious of it, because you're very aware, especially when you're in public, because you start to wonder
Oh,
like, what are these people thinking? Are they staring at me? Or you feel the stares
for
like
sure.
from around
That,
you.
yes, yes.
But it definitely makes me start to realize, like, because I'll start to be like, get in my head about it, and then I'm like, you know what? No, screw them. I can't help
Yeah,
it.
for real. Also, I have a tip for people with tics that are
Yeah.
feeling self-conscious is to wear headphones. So if
Okay.
you're ticking, you don't hear yourself ticking, and it doesn't even matter because you're just vibing to your own music.
There you go. That's good advice as well. And then
Yeah,
people will probably just think you're dancing or something to your own music if you want to
yeah,
kind of
yeah,
disguise it if you wanted to. So I
yeah.
think that's awesome advice. So before we end too, I just want to make sure, where can people start to follow you at and find all this great information that you always post?
You can follow me on Instagram at the truth about tics. Yeah, and just follow along with my journey. I'll be posting stuff that I'm going through life and just also more stuff about Tourette's and other co-occurring conditions.
Awesome. Well, that's all I had for today. Thank you so much for doing this with me. I so appreciate it. It's been so nice talking to you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.